They laughed the first time he cut into the earth. Not openly, not cruelly. It was the quieter kind of mockery. Glances exchanged, lips tightening, a pause held half a second too long. The kind that says, "We don't need to argue with you, because time will do it for us." He noticed, of course. He always did. The land lay open beneath a pale northern sky,
The cold
stretched
air
wide
bites,
and indifferent.
but we will
A place
endure.
where wind never truly slept, where the horizon felt closer than the future. The ground was dark with peat and memory, layered with centuries of frozen patience. This was where he chose to build. Not a cabin, not a frame house, not the clean vertical promise of milled timber and nails. A turf house. He worked alone, no crew, no audience, except the land itself and the villagers who passed by slowly, pretending not to look. His name was Elias, though few said it anymore. Names faded out here, replaced by roles: farmer, widower, fool, relic. He had been called all of them. Each morning, before the sun had decided whether to rise, Elias lifted his spade and cut clean rectangles from the earth. The turf came up heavy and wet, breathing out the smell of iron and old rain. He stacked the sods carefully, grass side down, as if handling something alive, as if the ground were lending him its skin. The first rumor spread before the foundation was even finished. "He's lost his sense," someone said near the docks. "Building like the dead used to," said another. "Winter will flatten it," came the conclusion, spoken gently, almost kindly. Elias said nothing. He had learned long ago that explanations were a form of begging. He shaped the walls low and thick, curving them inward as they rose, not fighting the wind, but bending beneath it. The roof was layered, birch bark, packed sod, and more earth still, until the house seemed less built than grown. From a distance, it looked like a wound that had healed, like a hill that breathed. Children dared each other to touch it. Adults shook their heads. Why build a house that hides? Why return to old ways when newer ones stand tall and bright? They didn't ask him directly. They already knew the answer they wanted. By late autumn, the frame houses stood proud, boards painted, glass windows flashing in the weak sun. Smoke rose from metal chimneys, straight and confident. Elias's home barely smoked at all. When it did, it crept from a narrow vent like a thought not meant to be overheard. Inside it was dim. The walls smelled of soil and roots. The temperature never shifted much, cool in the day, warmer at night. Elias slept with his hand on the earth, feeling the steadiness that only weight can provide. He remembered his father's voice as he worked. "The earth already knows how to stand," the old man had said. "All you have to do is let it." The first snow came early. It fell softly at first, drifting like ash. Children celebrated. Merchants complained. The villagers checked their roofs, proud of their angles and beams. Elias stepped outside and watched the white settle into the curves of his house, filling its seams, softening its edges. The turf house disappeared a little more with each hour. By nightfall, it looked like nothing at all. That was when the wind began to change. Not stronger, just colder, sharper, as if it had found something worth testing. The sea darkened, the birds left, the sun shrank to a pale coin behind thickening cloud, and somewhere deep beneath the frozen ground, the earth shifted its weight, preparing for something it remembered all too well. Elias closed his door. He placed another sod against the frame, sealing the entrance tight. Inside, the lamp flickered, casting long shadows that did not move. Above him, snow continued to fall. And far beyond the village, beyond the maps and the confidence of modern walls, winter was waking up. Not yet, Elias thought, resting his palm against the packed earth. But soon, and when it came, it would not care who had laughed. When the storm finally broke, it did so without apology. The wind withdrew first, leaving behind a silence so complete it rang. The cold lingered, sharp and absolute, as if daring anything to move too soon. No one did. Inside the turf house they waited. Hours passed, then a day, then another. The lamp was gone now, replaced by a soft gray light filtering down through the roof as the snow slowly compacted and shifted. Elias listened for cracks, for groans, for the sound of failure. There was none. At last he stood and began to dig. Upward. Each sod was heavy with ice, each movement slow and careful. The others helped, hands raw, muscles stiff, but driven by something stronger than urgency, certainty. They broke through into light. The world above had changed. The village was flattened, reshaped into low mounds and broken angles. Frame houses lay splintered, their proud lines reduced to debris. What remained standing did so only partially, wounded and exposed. And there, at the center of it all, the turf house emerged, intact, whole. The people stood in the snow, staring, not at the destruction, but at the quiet hill that had saved them. The house looked almost untouched, as if winter had passed over it and found nothing worth breaking. No one laughed now. In the weeks that followed, they rebuilt, but differently, lower, thicker, slower. They asked Elias questions then, real ones. He answered sparingly, never with pride. "This isn't clever," he told them once, packing earth into a new wall. "It's old." The land remembered, and now so did they. When the next winter came, and it did, the village stood ready, and no one mocked the turf house again. Because they had seen what happens when winter arrives, and the earth itself is on your side. The storm arrived without ceremony. No trumpet of thunder, no dramatic warning, just a steady erasure of everything that had once looked certain. Snow fell sideways now, driven by a wind that did not howl. It pressed. It leaned against walls and roofs as if testing them, searching for weakness with patient hands. Roads vanished first, then fences, then the spaces between buildings closed in, swallowed by white. The village changed shape overnight. Frame houses creaked and answered back, their wooden bones unfamiliar with such sustained pressure. Nails groaned, beams flexed. Somewhere glass shattered, one sharp sound, then silence again. Inside his turf house, Elias listened, not with fear, but with attention. The walls did not speak, they absorbed. The wind passed over the roof and forgot it was there. Snow piled high, compressing into a dense, insulating blanket. The temperature inside barely shifted. The lamp burned steadily, its flame untroubled. Elias cooked slowly. He conserved. He had planned for this. Days passed, or perhaps only one long night. Time blurred in the absence of light. The storm pressed on, relentless but strangely quiet, like something confident it would win eventually. In the village, confidence began to fracture. Smoke stopped rising from certain chimneys. Doors froze shut. A roof collapsed under the weight of ice, its crash muffled by snow. People shouted for help, then stopped shouting when the wind took their words. They remembered Elias then. Not his name, just the shape of his defiance. The house that hid instead of standing proud. The man who built low and slow while others hurried upward. Someone tried to reach him. They did not make it far. The drifts were chest-high now, packed hard by wind. The cold cut through wool and leather as if they were paper. Fingers went numb in minutes. Breath burned. The storm was not violent. That was its cruelty. It did not rage. It endured. Inside the turf house, Elias felt the pressure change. Not danger, attention. The earth settling more firmly around him, like a shoulder bracing under weight. He added another layer of peat to the inner wall, his movements unhurried. He thought of the others, not with triumph, with a quiet sadness. The land had tried to tell them, through old stories, through shapes that worked, through houses that stood long after their builders were gone. But memory, he knew, was fragile. Progress had a way of sanding it smooth. The wind found a weakness in the village before it found one in him. A frame house on the edge split at the seam. Cold rushed in, fast and lethal. By morning, no smoke rose from it at all. That was when the knocking began. It came faintly, muffled by layers of snow and turf. A dull sound, uncertain, like someone apologizing with their fists. Elias froze, listening. Another knock, then a voice, thin, shaking, desperate. He rose, slowly, removed the sod from the doorway. Cold spilled in like a living thing. A man stood there, half buried, eyes wide with shock and relief. "You were right," he said, not as an apology, as a fact. Elias said nothing. He pulled him inside and sealed the door again. The storm continued its work, and now it knew where to look next.
Word spread the only way it could, by those who survived long enough to carry it. One by one they came, not all at once, not in crowds. The storm would not allow that. They arrived singly or in pairs, faces burned raw by wind, bodies trembling from cold and exhaustion. Each knock sounded weaker than the last. Elias opened the door every time. He did not ask questions. He did not lecture. He simply made room. Inside, the turf house changed character. It was no longer just shelter. It was a refuge. The walls held steady. The air stayed warm. The lamp burned lower, then lower still as supplies were rationed with careful precision. The people sat close to the earth walls, touching them unconsciously, as if reassured by their solidity. Some cried quietly. Others stared into nothing, listening to the storm batter a world they could no longer see. Outside, the village was disappearing. Roofs collapsed under accumulated snow. Chimneys snapped. Doors froze forever in place. What had been upright and confident now lay broken and exposed, each failure another lesson written too late. The storm did not end. It paused. That was worse. The wind died down just enough to allow the cold to sink deeper. Temperatures dropped beyond memory. Wood became brittle. Breath crystallized. Even the sea stilled, locked beneath a skin of ice. Inside the turf house, time slowed. Elias counted food, counted people, counted days by the rhythm of sleep and waking. He moved carefully, deliberately, like someone navigating a place where every step mattered. One night, the ground shuddered. Not an earthquake, something subtler, a deep, resonant shift, the weight of snow settling, pressing down harder than before. The people froze, eyes wide, waiting for the walls to fail. They didn't. The earth absorbed the pressure, redistributing it, holding firm. The house did not resist, it accepted. That was when they understood. Not fully, not in words, but in their bones. This house was not fighting winter, it was cooperating with it. Outside, a frame house finally collapsed with a dull, distant thud. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. The storm returned with renewed focus, as if angered by what still stood. The turf house vanished completely beneath the snow. From above, there was no sign of life at all. Buried, hidden, alive. Elias lay awake that night, listening to the deep quiet of the earth, feeling the slow, immense patience of it. He knew this was not over. Winters like this never ended cleanly. They tested everything, including the choices that saved them so far. And somewhere above, the weight continued to grow.